तो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल थैंक यू सो मच हमारी वीडियो को लाइक करने और शेयर करने के लिए। आपकी वजह से हमारी वीडियो का रीच बढ़ने लगा है, हम काफ़ी ज़्यादा ऑडियंस तक पहुंचने लगे हैं। तो इसी तरीके से आप अपने प्यार को बरकरार रखिए और हमारे वीडियो को लाइक और शेयर करते रहिए, ताकि हम ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा ऑडियंस तक पहुंच सकें और हमारे इस चैनल का जो सोल पर्पस है उसको सॉल्व कर सकें। तो जैसा मैंने प्रॉमिस किया था, टेक एक्सेल का पहला वीडियो और पहले गेस्ट हैं हिमांशु राय। ये मैं इनको गेस्ट नहीं बोलूँगा क्योंकि ही इज़ अ फ्रेंड ऑफ माइंड। हमने काफ़ी सारे असाइनमेंट साथ में किए हैं, तो हम काफ़ी पुराने दोस्त भी हैं। और जिस हिसाब से हिमांशु ने अपनी जर्नी स्टार्ट की एज अ जावा डेवलपर और आज वो एक मल्टीनेशनल कंपनी में एज अ AI ML स्ट्रैटेजिस्ट हैं, और उन्होंने किस तरीके से अपने करियर को शेपअप किया है, तो आपको काफ़ी सारी चीज़ें जानने को मिलेंगी, काफ़ी सारी चीज़ें सीखने को मिलेंगी इससे। कैसे आप अपना करियर स्टार्ट कर सकते हो, कैसे आप अपने अपने आप को क्राफ्ट कर सकते हो। तो हमने काफ़ी सारी बातें की हैं इससे रिलेटेड, तो आपको काफ़ी मज़ा आने वाला है। आप लास्ट तक इस वीडियो को देखें। लास्ट तक देखेंगे तो आपको बहुत सारी चीज़ें समझ में आएंगी और आपको एक नया पर्सपेक्टिव मिलेगा। तो चलिए वीडियो स्टार्ट करते हैं।
ओके हिमांशु, तो कुछ अपने बारे में बताओ पहले, एंड देन विल स्टार्ट आवर सेशन। क्या ट्रेंड चल रहा है और कैसे चल रहा है, तो क्या आप
या
अपने बारे में थोड़ा कुछ बताएंगे दर्शकों को?
जरूर। पहले उससे पहले धन्यवाद जस्ट टू हैव मी हियर, राइट। वी स्पोक, हम लोगों की बात हुई थी, एंड फाइनली वी आर हियर, राइट। सो जरूर आपके दर्शकों के लिए, सो आई हैव specifically from my career perspective, maybe I'll talk about it. So I started my career way back in 2010, right? So it's been like more than 12-13 years now, 12 years,
I think
12 plus
same time
years.
पे हम लोग ने साथ
Yeah,
भी
same time पे, yeah, I mean, yeah, of course, both of us. And yeah, I started with at those times it was more on a Java development, etc., right? तो वही हम लोग काम करते थे, जावा कर लिया, स्प्रिंग कर लिया, राइट,
Hibernate यूज कर लिया,
एप्लीकेशन बना लिया,
एप्लीकेशन
वेब एप्लीकेशन बना लिया, कितना स्प्रिंग जानते हैं, राइट, एस्पेक्ट ओरिएंटेड प्रोग्रामिंग, ऑल दैट, राइट. सो दैट्स हाउ द करियर स्टार्टेड फॉर year or two. I was working for one of the consumer technology. That पहला जो project assignment मिला था was that, and I was working specifically on coherence and caching mechanism. So it's cool. मतलब नया था, सब कुछ नया था, अपना cubicle है, अपना ये है, अलग अलग fun था, वो time अलग था, right? I mean, you have your friends, closeness, all that. So that's how it started. Then after a year or two spending on that, I got an opportunity in one of the startup at that point in time. I joined there, offer machine learning and AI, and this is, I'm talking around 2014 now, right? So fast forward another 3-4 years. So machine learning, AI, all that started. So, and even in that company, it was basically where I was as part of CTO team. That was I mean, if that was in a focus. So I sort of picked it up. So that's how my journey started. I never thought of at that point in time. Still, I was figuring out that what I want to do. Right. I mean, I was loving what I was doing it in
still we
terms
are
of
figuring
developing.
out what needs to be done.
Yeah, and still, yeah, I mean, that goes on, right, forever in life. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean,
that's
of
how the
course,
IT industry is, right? So
yeah,
you
that's
don't
how
have
it.
any concrete path. Always you have to on top and figure
Correct,
out
correct,
what is trending and how you can adopt that, right? And I think
correct, exactly.
तुमने start किया 2012 या 13 2012 और
See,
13
yeah.
में,
So
right?
I started with 2012 itself. मतलब ऐसे मैं 14 as in formal, exactly जहाँ पे I am able to add value to a company, right? I mean, to a specific project. But yeah, of course, I started with 2012 and 13. Because and it was for a company, sort of a side project, which they also able to see the value of it, right? Whatever for, and those days it was more on a linear programming, linear regression, logistic regression, all that, right? So all the statistical stuff, and but it really bring a value. So but going back to this, right? So 2014 I started, and specifically wherein we can add value. For example, if you are talking about NLP side of it, or even the visual systems, right? So CNN aa gaya us time pe. There are a lot of so Alex net and all that, right? So those days were like
ImageNet,
a crazy time.
AlexNet.
Yeah, Alex net you had, and we started adopting that. I mean, and we started training on that, and that's where my interest sort of grew, wherein of course there was a demand. There are people, and of course, because as you said, right, I mean, 2 years before I was doing it, so I was sort of accustomed to it a bit more than, let's say, my colleagues. So I started, and there was nobody else, right, to do it at that point in time, at least in my company. So it sort of came together, right? All came together, and then I started working on it. And then I realized that, yeah, this is something which I can do, right? I mean, so basically, again, you see, you have Java technology, then you have big data coming in, and then we were actually in Hadoop, that the cloud era time, right? Hot and works, and then this cloud
Started
era.
from 2012 when the
Correct,
duck cutting started Hadoop on the mainstream, right?
correct,
Most
exactly,
Yahoo adopted that, and then most of the people started
exactly.
working on it.
Yeah, exactly.
ये
So
वो एरा
again,
अलग था. It was like
exactly.
कि पहले तो ये लगता था कि क्या है ये बिग 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 डेटा. किसी को समझाने जाओ तो ऐसा लगता था कि what is this? Is that something, big data? What is that? I mean, where it's stored? A lot of things, बहुत सारा jargons था उस टाइम पे. अभी तो बहुत
Right.
सारा
And
streamlined हो गया चीजें.
yeah, exactly. At that point in time, you also, first of all, of course, we are also new in a year or 2 year old. I mean, there was not such kind of a thing जहाँ पे कि बहुत ज्यादा आपको focus है already that okay, this is how your career path would look like, for example. And then there are technology shifts. So for example, you are doing Java development, तो वहां पे थोड़ा सा HTML कर लिया, CSS कर लिया. अभी उस समय तक बूटस्ट्रैप एंड ऑल, आई मीन jQuery वाला स्टफ जमाना भी था बीच में. अभी धीरे धीरे वी वर आल्सो शिफ्टिंग टू एंगुलर, राइट? सो it's a lot of things were happening at that moment in time, and a lot of play around with different technology, right? And there was no streamline. Of course, you were a developer, and then you supposed to, and then in between, in the same period from 2012 to 2015, there is full stack development part came into picture. Oh yeah, so now with Node.js coming in, so it's basically a period wherein again there was no streamline. You do what was needed, right? I mean, it's basically, it's not all you get to decide, right? It's always what is needed, where you are, right, and what environment you are in, and then what technology is needed in order to ship that product or ship that maybe the service, I mean, whatever you're working on. And that sort of determines you, okay, what you do, and then you try to figure it out and juggle it around, that okay, what you are liking among all of that, what you're doing, right? So and that's the good freedom, right? Because today, if I see new guys coming in, they already have a lot of work done around specific
Seriously, yeah.
technology,
I
right?
mean, newcomers are already aware. I mean, I remember when I started my career, that time, these are things are very hardly, right? I know there was an open elective in my uh, career. I mean, on my college, third semester of, I think fifth semester, artificial intelligence was one open elective, but nobody has chosen that, right? Because that time it's like, what क्या है ये, मतलब कुछ समझ ही नहीं आ रहा था उस टाइम पे. ऐसा था कि क्या है ये, इसका क्या यूज है. वो वर्ड ही ऐसा लगता था कि आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस है क्या. और पहली बात तो कोई टीचर नहीं था उसके हमारे यहाँ.
Right,
तो सारे सीनियर बोलते थे कि सीधे कंप्यूटर नेटवर्क ले लो. और कंप्यूटर नेटवर्क हमने 4 सेमेस्टर पढ़े. 2 सेमेस्टर तो एक्चुअली थे डेटा कम्युनिकेशन और नेटवर्किंग, एंड देन एक ओपन इलेक्टिव्स में भी हम लोग नेटवर्किंग, क्योंकि हमने सोचा कि चलो पढ़ा है इसी को कर देंगे फिर. तो
right,
इट वाज लाइक. और अभी देखो तो अभी का ट्रेंड क्या है कि सारे बच्चे, जितने भी नए बच्चे आ रहे हैं, अभी जितने भी नए न्यू कमर्स हैं, उनको सबको आइडिया है कि एआई क्या है, एमएल क्या है. और आई थिंक इट्स अ गुड थिंग, राइट? People are
yeah,
much more aware nowadays, right? So
yeah, I
starting,
mean,
if
yeah, of
they are
course.
starting, yeah.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, as you said, right, completely agree with your point. having that focus. And one of the good thing is that there are a lot of resources now available for free. There are a lot of
That's the
if you really
biggest thing
biggest
happens in
advantage, right?
the
And more than advantage, these guys are also up to it, right? I mean, they are also focused so much. I mean, I'm not sure that if I was, or maybe you might have been, but if I was so focused, I really do not know, right? In my initial career days, but these guys are focused as well. A good thing is the I see there are a lot
I
of,
wasn't फोकस. हम लोग के टाइम क्या
yeah,
था, जब जब स्टार्ट किया था तो ऐसा लगता था कि एप्लीकेशन प्रोग्रामिंग ही सही है, और आज के डेट में भी एप्लीकेशन प्रोग्रामिंग का जो यूज है, इट विल नेवर गो, राइट? एप्लीकेशन
no,
प्रोग्रामिंग
it would, it
तो
would,
हो
yeah.
रहेगा ही रहेगा, चाहे तुम कुछ भी बनाओ, इंटरप्राइज एप्लीकेशन हो चाहे जो भी एप्लीकेशन, तो एप्लीकेशन प्रोग्रामिंग का तो यूज केस रहेगा ही,
Yeah, I
और
mean,
ये जाने वाला, एंड नहीं होने वाला. बट या बट दे
yeah,
आर न्यू
exactly.
न्यू ट्रेंड्स.
Yeah, it's yeah, इस पे exactly मेरा view भी point, मेरा strong view भी है, right? See, the thing is this: most of there are two parts to it, right? One is wherein there are a lot of businesses. So we are developing it for business, right? So your technology, your tech, everything is around that business. So that's that one kind of a development happens, and that's where all this would really boils down to your application development part of it, right? I mean, in the software engineering, wherein there is another track, for example, the Googles of the world, we are literally looking into a software product which serves a specific need, but it's a software product. Because so what I'm trying to say, for example, if you go ahead and look at let's take an example of any financial companies, right? Their focus, or let's say any industrial companies, their focus is not on technology, right? Technology is just an enabler to do their business smoothly, right? Or do their business more profitably, for example. But let's say take an example of Google Map, right? It's more a technical problem to solve opposed to a business specific, because everything which happens, that happens through that tech, right? कैसे सैटेलाइट लिया, कैसे जियो का, किस तरह से जियो मैपिंग कर रहे हैं, all that, right? How you divide into grids, etc., how you come up with those efficient algorithms. Now, not necessarily that is needed if you go for a financial company, right? I mean, even if you do a most efficient algorithm in order to do the transaction between merchant and acquirer, or whatever they call it in their terminology, right? I mean, their domain. I mean, it's okay. They can still do a business, right? And thus, application. So there is always a place for application development, wherein you have a good horizontal, uh, understanding of technology. For example, okay, Node.js, HTML, Bootstrap, Angular, or React, whatever, right? From front end tech to, let's say, going into back end, wherein you're today also people use a Spring, right? So you have a Spring, how you go about developing your web services, etc. And then of course the overarching architectural part of it. So all that still goes on. See, even if you look at it, Amazon companies like Amazon or Google, right? Or even Azure, meaning Microsoft, right? So AWS and your Azure, all of them, these guys are also just giving you a consulting around how you should go about defining your architecture, right? What shoots better with services which you should be able to use it. And then again, this is purely, so if I could really run my career also with just having a understanding of AWS ecosystem, right? Specifically, not necessarily doing a lot of innovation, and just giving a consulting and let that. So what I'm trying to come at is, there are every kind of job available. It really depends on what you really enjoy doing,
Right.
right?
So on top
So
of, following the same explanation which you have done, so तुम्हें क्या लग रहा है कि आज के टाइम पे किस टाइप का path choose करना सही? I mean, there are a lot of, right? So there is application programming people usually work, and I wouldn't say application programming. I would say now it's an enterprise application where you create a microservices and all, right?
right.
उस sense में.
Perfect. Yeah.
And then
Right.
there is a people who works on the front end mostly, front end jobs hai. And then now trends are people also works on the big data and all, right? Spark ho gaya, Flume ho gaya. I mean, there are a lot of big data ecosystem, right? So data engineering aspect, right? So you have a lot of things to start with your career, like data engineering. You can start data science. You can start application programmer. You can start backend developer, front end developer. There are a lot of things. So what do you think कि क्या future है सारे का? And the last second question would be ये जो अभी नया ट्रेंड चला है जब से आई थिंक चैट जीपीटी के आने के बाद से आई थिंक पीपल लाइक क्रेजी, राइट? किस कुछ भी बातें चल रही है कि ये जॉब चली जाएगी. व्हाट योर टेक ऑन इट? क्या तुम्हें लगता है कि जॉब चली जाएगी? और एंड इफ नॉट, इफ यस, आई मीन यू कैन हैव बोथ द आंसर. अगर जाएगी तो क्या रीजन है, नहीं जाएगी तो क्या रीजन है, एंड हाउ यू कैन ओवरकम दैट, राइट? तो पहले स्टार्ट, यू कैन टॉक अबाउट कि क्या पाथ चूज करना चाहिए फॉर द न्यू कमर्स.
Right. Yeah. Right. So see, it depends on the individual as well, right? I mean, what sort of my suggestion would be, and that's how I
okay have, so let me put you in that way. Let's say you starting your career just now, right? Just forget about your, because I think you already have a bias of machine learning side, so just remove that bias first, right? Because you already been there 12 years. I know that, right? So just remove that bias first, and now tell me what path you're going to choose.
See, one of the advantage, if thinking that way, that I have that 12 year of experience to decide what I would like to do, right? But that is one of the advantages. Still, I have it because I can't sort of erase it. But one thing is for sure, it really depends, Brijesh, which in my view, right, it really depends on what you like, and how you get to know that is basically to do a bit of experiment, right? So for example, initial year, 2 year, how I see it, as we were speaking before as well, right? So there are a lot of people coming in and they already have, for example, in AI में बहुत सारा, they have done a lot of certification. They already know that, okay, मैं ये कर लूँगा, I can go, I know NumPy, all that, and there are these use cases. I have tried it out. There is Kaggle में बहुत सारा use cases आता है. We try to solve it. I mean, I'm talking about from AI perspective. Similarly, if you look at it from software engineering perspective, there are people who have done a lot of certification. They have literally have a good, I mean, there are a lot of platforms as well, right? For example, HackerRank and all that. So they go ahead, practice it. There is a Google Code developer. So they do a lot of things now, which is good. But they do it a lot of focus thing, right? Which is really good, which is needed, to be honest with you. But what I also suggest, in order to, because what happens is there are two things at play, right? One is your psyche. If you're good at it, you like doing it, right? But then also you at certain stage, for example, the stage which I am in now, or you are, right? Or maybe a few years more. So after 5, 6, 7 years of really good career, enjoying all through doing what you have been doing, there are times, when the time comes wherein you really feels like, okay, this is something which I really wanted to do. So to avoid that, right, and what you should do, actually, you go ahead and experiment in first 2 years. Of course, as maybe you could focus on one particular stream, but experiment, try to see what you like. So for example, now if you ask me, as you said, right, today if I need to do something, I would have literally chosen UX design, because somehow I feel like I really enjoy doing it, So the reason is there are a lot of creativity comes into designing the web page, for example, irrespective of the benefits which you get it, for example, from the money perspective, the career perspective, all that. And so if you do a lot of experiment initially, a year or two, that sets you well. Another thing is, it also gives you, so I also, and this is how I have run my career as well, Brijesh, that I did what was needed. Of course, I knew that what I wanted to do, right? That, for example, AI and ML. I was literally focused. I was focused on, but I also experimented with things. So, for example, having a AI and ML path, career path, and I'm just going ahead with that, meaning that's the deeper thing which I would like to pursue, and I'm pursuing it. But then still uh, getting to do, for example, web front end development. I have done that. For example, even developing a service bus related stuff, right? I mean, literally using a MuleSoft just to see how these guys, what happens there, right? And even to get that exposure by doing it, it really serves you well when you really go. I mean, not everybody is looking at to become an entrepreneur, for example, right? So if you really, at the end of it, if you really want to become a consultant, or you really looking at VP's role, right? Or looking at a leadership role wherein you decide what has to happen, this all of these experience really connects you well with your team. Because let's be honest, right? As much as you can reflect it, by doing it yourself, it gives you a lot of understanding
Right. So,
right off the bat.
so means your thought is first do your own due diligence, research or not. At least 2 साल तो आपको अपना देना चाहिए. I mean, whatever the jobs you are in, right? Whatever the
Yeah.
jobs, spend 2 years at least. Learn things. There are a lot of things you have to learn. जैसे मैंने भी start किया था जब तो I started the application program, right? And then after 2.5 years, I realized I know most of the part because on that 2.5 years, I worked on the front end, back end, a lot of JavaScripts. Angular also started. उस time one आया था, at one आया था, and yeah, Angular 1 first release हुआ था उस Angular का. We hands on that as well. तो बहुत सारा कुछ किया. एक नॉकआउट करके JS आता था उस टाइम पे, है ना, उस पे भी काम किया था. बिकॉज बहुत जैसे होते क्या ना, अगर किसी सर्विस बेस्ड कंपनी या फिर स्टार्टअप कंपनी से स्टार्ट करो तो बहुत सारी चीजें तुम्हें सीखने को मिलती है इन टर्म्स ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी वाइज. मैंने हेरेकू, क्लाउड बेस, देयर आर लॉट ऑफ हेरेकू उस टाइम पे नया नया आया था. आई रिमेम्बर इट वाज केम फ्रॉम आई थिंक 2012 के आसपास आया था. और द गॉड ग्रेस जो हमारे आर्किटेक्ट थे, उन्होंने उसको अडॉप्ट कर लिया था तुरंत फर्स्ट रिलीज में ही. तो एंड वी हैव हैंड्स ऑन. सो एटलीस्ट फर्स्ट टाइम मैंने इंटरेक्शन हुआ था किसी क्लाउड सर्विसेज से, एंड देन AWS एंड ऑल. तो मैंने स्टार्ट किया एप्लीकेशन प्रोग्रामिंग, एंड देन आई रियलाइज कि नाउ आई हैव टू मूव टू द something which is currently trending is going on, which is by the time 2012 or 13 14 के आसपास सबसे ज्यादा हॉट चल रहा था बिग डेटा इंजीनियरिंग का पार्ट. So I jumped into it, right? And then we met. So you are doing something else. You are doing something else. So and then slowly gradually I sooner realized कि अच्छा ये भी हो सकता है. अब इसके आगे क्या, मशीन लर्निंग भी देख लेते हैं. मशीन लर्निंग सीखे, and then we excel ourselves in that way also. So now ऐसा है कि अब ऐसा लगता है कि अब हमें बिट सारी चीजों का अंडरस्टैंडिंग हो गया, because the ecosystem, if you're not understanding whole ecosystem, so if you started working on the one silos part, right, तो वो चीज ज्यादा जरूरी है. then you realize कि तुम्हें अब क्या सीखना है, अब क्या करना है, then you can choose your path. So I think correct. Your thought is also as you have explained, right? तो वो सही है. मतलब अपना स्पेंड करो टाइम. तो यही है न्यू कमर्स के लिए कि स्पेंड सम टाइम्स 2 years at least, एक्सप्लोर थिंग्स, एंड देन यू सूनर एंड लेटर रियलाइज कि तुम्हें क्या करना है, देन यू स्टार्ट पिकिंग दोस पार्ट.
Correct. And quick way of validating it, for example, would be this way, right? So what I was, while explaining that, I literally went a bit longer as well. But the specific, to answer your specific question, right? That what people should, what was your question? Sorry. What people should go about doing it at this point in time if they are starting their career, right? That's the So basically, specifically, of course, do a lot of experiment. Of course, now one of the good thing, and why I'm saying that, because I know that there are a lot of focus has already been, for example, in one specific stream which they really want to follow. So along with that, do a lot of experiment, which what it enables you really to see things from a different perspective. For example, we are now talking in a landscape of technology, doing a hands-on, but it could also be, for example, from a product manager perspective, right? Or let's say if you are the one who is designing a product, literally documenting a product, right? So we were talking about just the technical stream, right? That's one part of it. I mean, you can, within that you have option to sort of play around. But also what I meant, and was what I was trying to come at, that you can also look at it stream wise, I mean vertical wise. For example, you really want to be a developer or an architect or a completely technical role, or you really want also to look at it from the product perspective, product management perspective, right? Mm, and really looking into the design aspects of things, right? Really looking into, for example, if it is a business specific, if there is a domain specific thing you want to do. So because if you're not, eventually if you know the technical a bit, right? I mean, not a bit, I mean, I'm saying, if for example, if you have worked for 3-4 years with hands-on and all that, you really set for doing all of these jobs, given that, because of course you have a technical understanding, that's one. Second is, it's really doing other job is really depends on 2 to 3 specific things, right? If you are good in communication, if you are able to structure your talk, right? And if you are able to think it structurally, right? Even the thought process, and then communicate it, that's all it is needed, right? To do all of these jobs. And of course you need to have, for example, if whichever domain you are in, having a good understanding of that, it really helps, of course. And you can actually develop it as well. But having a a technical understanding with initial 3-4 years, it really sets you well. So what I really meant, in short, that you can do a lot of experiment then. And I strongly suggest, even for a product manager, right? So for example, my aim is to be a product manager, or somebody who do the product management stuff, right? Which, having a technical 2-3 years of really hands-on experience really sets you well for your path, because it really gives you the good understanding. And even for the project management, of course, right? And project management is still, I really think that as a job which everyone should do. I mean, it's all of us managers our work, right? Eventually, uh, whichever way. So that's, in that sense, I don't see that as a specific job. But yeah, of course, if for example, and that's where the trend has come in, right? You have now in engineering manager role, rather than being called as a project manager. I mean, of course, you work for some older company, they do still call it technical product project manager or project manager, right? But it's more on engineering manager and all that, right? So yeah, I mean, that's how I see it. Now, this is one. The second question, you were talking about chat GPT coming in and then taking
Yeah,
away jobs,
I mean, it's a
right?
lot of buzz now.
Yeah. There are a lot of
And the LLM is already proven what
yeah,
he is capable of, right? So what do you think?
yeah,
How the trends are moving towards that? Is it
right. And
going to acquire everything? So देखो हो क्या रहा है कि there are a lot of commentary goings on कि GPT 4 के बाद बहुतों की जॉब जाने वाली है. There are a lot of commentary. I mean, if you open LinkedIn, right, people are talking back and forth. Even in the YouTube also, people are who don't know about the GPT, they are still talking about the GPT and the consequences, right? A bad consequences. Like there's trends going on कि तुम्हारा job चला जाएगा, तुम्हारा ये हो जाएगा, GPT सब कर देगा तुम्हारा. I mean, there are a lot of hypes has been created. I know
right.
I've also created a video around that. You can also check it out. But I want
Yeah,
to because we are working in industry, right? So and we know what is reality. I know the GPT has a lot of potential. But do you really think it will kill the jobs, or it will kill people who's working on, they lost jobs? Recession का छोड़ो, वो सब छोड़ो. Talk about the technology, how this technology is shaping, and what do you think about it?
It's shaping it well. If you remember, I think we spoke, I think back in 2018 as well. I was working specifically related to these language models with related to code, etc. Right? And so
knowledge graph you
and
were
there was
working, and
not
you are
right.
also generating codes and all that. Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, right.
We had a
So
lot of
so
chat on that.
right, exactly. So that was
So just to
happening in
give a
2018.
perspective what we are talking, so Himanshu is already worked on code generation, code generation based on the NLP text, right? So you can just prompt basically on the industry side, because there are a lot of PLCs programming where you cannot interrupt ongoing services is going on. So the code itself get interpret the error terms and
Right,
create a
right,
logical component out of it. So you
right,
used to generate a
right.
code out of it. Yeah.
Right. I mean, from the code perspective, even the code similarity, because there are a lot of lines of code has been written, and it's basically now.
And by that
Let's not.
time, there is no LLM. There is no transfer.
No.
Architecture was
It
there.
was. Yeah. It was just a plain vanilla NMT model, right? You have encoder, you have decoder. So with encoder you pass along, and then with decoder it's decodes it, right? Just a language model wherein the in 2018, if you remember, 2018, I think they introduced a paper called Attention All You Need, right, with BERT, etc. But I'm talking about just pre to that, we were just having an encoder and decoder model by plain vanilla, wherein you put some English words, right, with your encoder, and then you try to convert it into some other language, let's example French, right? And those things were literally doing the rounds in research community, and on using that. And then we were also researching, because I was part of a research organization then, and we were researching that how we will go about doing it for, let's say, for example, code. And there are a lot of research, and at that point in time, when I was, because I was actively researching at this topic, there are a lot of research was happening from Facebook, from Microsoft, right? Specifically because I could find a lot of research paper from them. And I knew that there are a lot of work is happening already. And of course, with OpenAI, etc., Musk investing in it. So now, of course, what Chat GPT has come about, it really, I find it a bit, knowing the tech behind it, of course, you really need to have a good infrastructure in place in order to do it. And then, of course, the time, and then you do it, right? I mean, eventually, there is nothing much bigger than that. Eventually, it based on those basic principle of how the bird was created, and then after that you have attention models, right? And even and the transformers, right? So just that's the basic funda, and then based on that they have and then using infrastructure, they have literally trained it on complete wiki and Google, whatever pages are there. They have taken everything and then done that, and it is doing really fine. I mean, it's really doing good, right? I mean, even if I
Yes.
tried it out, the Chat GPT, I mean, you guess what? I mean, I was talking specifically asking about, okay, how should I go about things in generic level? For example, a generic GAN, if you want to get it, you can easily get it there, right? I mean, it gives you point wise a good structural way of showing it. And now, and it looks really good. It looks like, oh my goodness, everything is getting generated, everything. But if you look at it from expert view, right, there are, of course, there are a lot of good things has been generated, but it is not up to the mark, right? So, for example, if I really need to use in industry at to start with today, let's say, for example. Now, I mean, I'll also talk about in future what can happen, but today specifically, it does really good. It does. I mean, it also generates code, right? For example, you can just give a that I need a this kind of a web page with this checkbox, etc., etc. It basically gives you a code HTML, right, which you download and happy to go, right? Yeah. So all that is there, but one of the problem right now, even for industry to really use this chat GPT as is, right? I mean, as is, when I say basically taking it, customizing it, doing a transfer learning, customizing it for themselves, right, from OpenAI, and then doing it. There are a lot of governance topic has to be, looked at. What I mean by that governance topic. So, for example, who would be responsible if something goes wrong, right?
Yeah,
So,
that's how the
how
new talks are going on. When the
right,
like Elon and Jan and Andrew Ng started, filing a
yeah.
petition. Not petition. They started commentary around what's if things goes wrong. So they're they're going to stop. They are asking people to stop GPT fives to be happen before
Right, right.
anything happens.
So they are going even the extra step ahead. I'm even
Yeah.
below that. I mean, I'll tell you what I'm trying to say. So, for example, even let's say assume this Chat GPT 4, I'm using it. I did my from OpenAI, a company sort of get it the license maybe based on service. I really do not know how that works right now. But let's say if you get it, you do a transfer learning with for your organization. You sort of train it, right, specifically to your data sets, and then you start using it. Now, where it can be used, let's talk about that first, right? So where it can be used. So, for example, you can really use, I mean, I can use my all document train on that, and whoever needs some information within an organization right now, really it's a really hard time searching for a person who knows about this, who knows about that, and then go about having a conversation, right? And then talk about your problem. They will say, oh, by the way, I just know this much, you go to this person, right? Da da da, you go there, they give you some gist, and you really need to get a good view that, oh, so this piece information I got it here, right? So those things are, this is a real challenge. If you remember, even good that now when I'm talking about it, I remember we working around 2017 a problem with one of the company, right,
Right.
wherein they really wanted to tag one
Exactly. Yeah.
document together, right?
Right. Right.
Given what kind of a problem. So those sort of a problem can be solved using these models. Now,
Let me rephrase those questions. So for the audience, basically, what we were trying over there. So they have a lot of documents, right? And there are a lot of queries around which documents we have to refer, right? So it's an open NLP problem. So we were classifying those documents, relevant documents to those particular questions. So
right.
yeah, in that sense, we have participated.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, so exactly. So just to add on what Brijesh was saying, so basically they had a plethora of documents, right, and they create a ticket, and the person who is solving that problem might not be aware of all the processes, right,
Right.
for that specific problem, and for that they have some keywords, right, based on the conversation via chat or via call, and they have SLA to meet. Let's say, for example, in 2-3 minutes. I really do not remember, and generally that's how the specific SLA has to be
SLA
met,
one
right?
or two, not a 2 or 3 minutes. I think it's a 24 hours SLA was there. But yes,
No.
that's the problem.
Over a call. No. That the problem is statement which we
Okay,
had,
okay, okay.
that over a call they needed to solve, and they really needed to know that our document. Right? But yeah, I mean, as you said, there are a lot of other use cases where this fits in. But just to give you the understanding that based on that keyword, within a their search tool, they search it, and they really need that top 5 relevant documents, right? And we were trying to sort of using our machine learning to make sure that those top 5 recommendation are really a good recommendation which really solves a problem, rather than just having a keyword matching, right?
All
So
right.
that's the problem we were solving, and those kind of a thing can easily be done using our LLM models with chat GPT coming in. But now the question is this. Now, for example, now what people are saying that the job will be literally wipe out because this can be done. Yeah, of course, this can be done. I do not see how the job will get wiped out, right? I mean, it's basically to say this way, right? Back in when there were these RS 400 stuff, right? And people are saying, oh, you know what? Now you really do not need a developer. Now we have really good application. We can build an application via which you can do everything. So person can do it, right? So yeah, of course, the kind of jobs wherein a lot of manual process which is mundane in task, which can be automated, of course will get automated, and you would not be doing that work. But that does not really mean that you will get replaced by that technology, but rather
Exactly.
you need to upgrade yourself in order to have a in order to be in order to really use that newer tech the way it is now would be needed, right? So what I mean by that, so for example, abhi मैं chat gpt or any NLM model you use it on this context, let's try to fit. अगर LLM मॉडल मुझे इस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में यूज करना है तो बंदे का क्या होगा, राइट? तो जो बंदा कॉल ले रहा है या फिर कॉल SLA सॉल्व कर रहा है, नाउ ऑफ कोर्स chat gpt is giving you the information directly. Now you can talk about, yeah, I mean, of course the information is already here. Now this information has to be given it to, let's say, whoever the concerned person is. You can go ahead and give that that can be also automated through AI using a voice and all that. But now somebody has to be there in
Authorized.
order to over see it, right? Exactly, see it. If that information is the right information to give, that is one. Second, if this much of information you want to pass on, or if there is
Yeah.
lesser information you would like to pass on, right? I mean, it really how that happens. So now
Moderation
this was
always needed. Yeah. Moderation
exactly.
always
So
needed.
how exactly? So how you will moderate it? Apart from that, for example, if that information has gone, which was even right, but might be out of context, and then and the consequences of things which is went wrong, and because of that business suffers financial loss or maybe credibility loss, you don't know. I mean, there are a lot of different kind of things can happen. And then in that sense, if the company is showing bias, who is responsible? And within an organization, how they will go about structuring it. I mean, they cannot go and punish and say that, oh, by the way, I mean, they cannot come to a product manager saying that, oh, your product is really awful product, you get fired, right? Yeah, I mean, so how this whole thing will happen? So those kind of a governance thing has to happen internally. If I see, it will be really good tool to use it. For example, within an organization, if somebody I need an information about something, I go about Google. Within there is a search page with this kind of a chat. I get a lot of information. As a newcomer, I get onboarded really fast, right? I don't really need to know a lot of people, uh, right, to start with. And to get information, I get a lot of information, and that information, it really gives me a good platform to then network, right? Okay, so this is what I know. Can you help me now? One of the problem, if we go as a newcomer or in any organization, or now this is one use case per se, and I'm taking that as a base to explain it. So whenever you, for example, if you might switch to another company in a more higher role. I mean, for example, after 8-9 years of experience, you are getting into an organization which is, and you're literally dealing with a strategy related stuff, right? What really ends up happening is that you need a lot of information, right? That how, why there are these things placed, what was the reason behind it, and etc, right? And there are a lot of information you need to curate it for yourself, then to go about adding value for that matter, right? And in that realm, if you see, this works really well, right? Because you get a lot of information, then you talk to relevant people, right? And then you can your onboarding time, your understanding of that system really sort of quickens up, right? And you can start adding value. I still see this is how I mean, I would like to believe that this is how industry is looking at it at this point in time. Because if you start really using it in as a system which really does end-to-end stuff, right? Because there are a lot of automation can happen. I don't think so that we are anywhere near that. I mean, it will take easily a decade to even go there. I mean, reach that path. And by then, the people will also upgrade themselves, right? To and it becomes a utility. See, for example, just to give you a very short, funny thing is coming in my mind. Now, the calculator is created does not really mean that you really do not need to know how to
Exactly.
add and
I mean,
subtract.
this analogy, I can totally relate. The people actually not understanding, and they just vaguely saying it will replace the jobs and all. I heard a lot of commentary in the YouTube and LinkedIn also. People are vaguely saying it will replace entire workforce. See, I have one
These are- Yeah,
very
yeah, please go ahead.
uh, one analogy here. Let's say, even though you are generating a code, that code needs to be understand, right? So if you're not a coder, let's say if you're not a coder, what people are saying, coder job is gone with the chat GPT. Now anyone can write a code. This is totally a misconception. Why I'm saying, if you don't know the coding, even the chat GPT, if chat GPT gives you the code, you will not understand what it is and what is where I can fit that code, right? First of all, and even though you understand somehow how you're going to use it, how you can deploy it, there are a bunch of things you have to do
Yeah,
when it comes in the
right.
enterprise or
And
any sort of application, right?
yeah. Even for example, Brijesh, if I think, right, I mean, even if you really need to automate as a system itself, which basically goes about really generating the code and doing all of that process also altogether, right? But it creates also newer kind of roles. What I'm trying to say, right? What I'm trying to come at is basically, even in 10 years down the line, even if it happens so, it's just the nature of your job is changing, right? So
Yeah, so you have to
basically,
adopt. Basically, you have to upgrade yourself. You always have to
yeah,
be
and
in line with the trends, what's
exactly,
going on.
and
If you're working in an
still,
IT industry, so this is
yeah.
very much needed.
For example, we started with, I mean, as we said, right? I mean, initially we were talking about, we started with Java, Spring,
Right.
etc., then jQuery, and even so. Let's take about even one technology specifically. If I have been working only in front end, right? Let's say I would have started with HTML, then CSS, right? Then the Bootstrap came in, and then HTML5 version is coming also, and then on top of it, jQuery came in. Right? No, initially we have a JavaScript wherein you can do those prompting stuff, right? Then they came jQuery with asynchronous call. Then came your component
Angular,
based
a
design with
lot of
Angular,
libraries
React,
started
right?
coming, and you
Yeah,
slowly
exactly.
started adopting those because of the
And
new trends, because the
yeah,
company demands.
exactly.
So
Exactly. So what I'm really, things changes based on that you adopt. I mean, even for example, Angular version 1, you know it better than me, right? Angular version 1 and Angular version 2, let me tell you
it's a
that both of us would have started,
total 100% change. I would say
right? So
total
exactly.
disaster.
So
I mean, not
yeah,
disaster.
exactly.
It's a totally
Basically
framework
complete
got changed,
restructure of the way. Yeah,
restructure.
exactly, the
Yes.
complete restructure way, the way they thought about building that framework, right? So now this is from technical standpoint, but from even if you look at it from, this is the only thing which is going to happen is it will speed up the process, right?
Yeah.
uh, it will, I mean, for example, if we would like to have a workforce of, let's say, doing the same task, you wanted to have 100 of workforce, maybe with 20 people you can do it. But then it really does not mean that cutting off a workforce, but rather you will do more. Because see, the way the world is set up, right, it's basically to do as much as possible. So idea is never to cut things, but do it more. And what it really means that you get to do newer things, right? And you adopt that, and then you get that. So I do not see as such, any with any technology, advancements, it always happens that you, if you adopt well, right, uh, then it's a newer opportunity which you get, and it becomes easier for you as well, right?
Right.
Doing easier stuff rather than doing some mundane task which takes a lot
So
of effort.
so
Yeah.
what you are recommending? I mean, people start start doing machine learning and AI things. I mean, at least they can start understanding what is this, right? And then slowly
Right,
they
right.
can
I mean,
brush
see,
up and then they can master on it.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly. So not necessarily everybody has to be a AI developer or a data science person, right? I mean, one is of course how it happens under the hood, right? So if somebody who's really interested in AI tech and all that, they can do that. And also, second, if you look at it, it also about from the applicability perspective, how the application of this will come about, right? So going through a lot of, I mean, do a lot of readings every time, right? There are a lot of journals with Forbes, with Bain, McKinsey, all that. They recycle a lot of stuffs, right? And put newer words, fancy words, and give you. Nothing. Of course, nothing against them. What they do a really great job. And you read those stuff, you already get to have more information, and you really know it already that what you want to do. And I mean, in your industry specifically. So I'm not talking about. Now, I really do not know whom you're catering to. For example, if you talk about only from a developer perspective, it's really a good place to be in AI, right? I mean, there is, and in UX, if you ask me, the only person, if at all somebody should bother, the DevOps folks should bother. Just a joke.
Okay, so I have another question here.
Right.
Related to the success, when people talks about a lot of success stories and all, right? What do you think about the success? Is it only money matter, or is it what you liking if you get those things? How you explain the success? A very short term, not you have to explain everything. If you can
Right,
just
right.
tell us about
I
your experience
agree.
about the success. Are you successful
Right.
or not, or still you are figuring out?
Yeah, I mean, see, it's again
It's a
depends
very
really, right?
subjective,
So
yes, but at least you
very
can.
subjective. Yeah, exactly. I understand that. See, Brijesh, if I need to really talk about success as such, for me, the success really means uh, adding value, right? And so see, one is of course the money or the finance aspect is nothing but a tool for you. It's just an enabler to do certain things which you would like to do it in your life, right? Not the goal of it, right? As such. So, for example, if my goal is not to ship rocket somewhere, right? I may not need much of money, right? So it's really fine if I'm not able to make a lot of money, right? So in that sense, so now success really means for me is the ability to first add value to yourself, right? uh, and having a time as well, right? So what happens is in today's world, what is happening right now, that a lot of people are literally working day in day out in order to get more and more and more money, but they do not have a time to really enjoy that stuff, right? I mean, what's the point of earning
वो
that kind
पैसा
of
कमा
money?
के क्या करोगे, उसका मजा ही नहीं ले पाए बस.
Exactly. I mean, क्या मतलब कोई मतलब नहीं. That's so that's again is exactly. So it's the in complete entirety how you are able to balance things, right? For
Yeah.
example, from money perspective, from family perspective,
So
from your passion perspective, right?
yeah.
Also, how you are able to add value to you, to your family, to the ecosystem where you are working in. For example, if you are working in an IT industry, how we are able to add value to IT systems, right? I mean, IT industry per se. Then to your society, and all that. So all of this, the ability to do that, plus the extra the bit which I would say that then even while doing that, right, having done that, the ability to detach with that, right, that's in overall is a success means, right? You're happy, content, doing everything what you could do at your best and still not bothered about it, right? That
Yeah.
so because success is really about your experience, right? So it's a journey, not a destination, right? So
Right. Fair enough.
in that
Again, I
journey, how
think you articulated very well. Um,
yeah,
I have another last question. I think we are running
yeah,
out of time also. I
right,
don't want
yeah,
to keep
drag it
you
there, of course.
here for the longer. So, a last question. in my mind. What do you think formal education is needed, or because a lot of people started dropping off from the career at company, sorry, not company, from the school, and started something else. So do you think a formal education still needed, or you can also do without a formal education? A lot of things you can do. So what your take on it? I
Yeah, I
mean,
mean,
I
formal
know we had a formal education, so we had a bias
yeah,
also. But what do you think in the surrounding? If you see, right, there are a lot of successful people around it, and they did not had a formal education also.
yeah,
What
yeah.
do
I
you
mean,
think on it?
yeah, yeah. I mean, if I just be a bit philosophical, just one liner, right? In a philosophical sense, before this formal education, we had a really thriving, not generation, but a culture, right? So, I mean, of course, they must have their own way of educating people. But what I'm trying to get at is that all this formal education which we have right now is really bogus. I mean, if I need to really go about criticizing, I will do it every time I can talk around that topic, like I don't know how long. But in short, just to give you an answer, formal education, the only advantage which I see, right, the education system which we have, the only advantage we have is that we get to meet people, and really at the time where we are not judging, right, we are exploring, all of us in that age, g- really build a good relationship with and have a lifetime friendship. Apart from that, I really do not see any utility of that education system.
Okay, so
So that's
still,
how I see it, right?
yeah. I mean, fair enough. I mean, even bit of things I can totally relate. It's not needed nowadays because there are a lot of things you can do without. Yes, education is needed, but you have to train yourself
And the
in a different way.
education, the form, yeah,
Form
yeah,
of
exactly,
education is
in
not
the
needed,
form,
like you
the
have to
shape.
go to school and everything, but at least on the same time you have to socialize with the people, because the biggest debate on informal education is you will not find people socialize. I mean, you cannot socialize after that, and there are debates on that, but there is a another debates people also
Right,
talks
right.
about.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So in short, what I'm trying to get at is that the form and shape in which now the education is happening, it's it really does not prepare you for what you should be able to do in your life. Just imagine, for example, any informal education, the way they taught me, I should only be working, right? I mean, I should only be just be happy. I mean, I should not be asking questions, right? I should be just doing things what has been asked me to do. Now this is exactly what they are teaching, and the astonishing thing is still today that is what is happening, right? So for example, you go with teacher gives you homework, you do a homework, and if you are obedient, you are the best person, right? So I mean, this is not the way you sort of engage. I mean,
Right.
and even the curriculum, etc. Right? I am hyper critical on these topics. So
We'll talk
let
about
me
in some
not
other
take.
day, maybe. Obviously, this is not a one session with you. I'll invite you in another session as well. So you are our
Right.
daily guest, sort of. Whenever I find things are not going well, I'll call you, and then we can have a session.
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
So
Yeah.
thanks, Himanshu, and let's catch up in some another day. So by that time, take care.
Thanks for having me,
And
Brijesh. Right? Yeah.
can you
Thank
just
you.
tell my viewers to subscribe this channel and all?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, of course. I mean, to be honest with you, I have been seeing your YouTube videos, and I've seen a progression as well. You have improved a lot the way do it, and it's a journey, right? And guys, I know Brijesh. He's very passionate. I know him from last. I really do not track now a number of years. We know each other. It's like for a longer time, right? So subscribe it, like it, the videos, and also comment it, right, for him. That what he wants. I mean, how you want to structure things, and maybe what you are interested in, right? All that, because gem of a guy, and he's very. I mean, all I would say that uh, the more you comment, the more perspective you give it to him, the better videos he will make, right? So
Thanks.
yeah.
Thanks, Himanshu.